Oh dear. Hi, lovely. This is your Kid Rose, Chaos Kid Rose, whatever you want to go. You get the point. The new channel change. Now I should have been doing this earlier when Final Fantasy VII 25th anniversaries happened, but I've been on some home improvement projects and construction stuff, work, and some other things too. But I guess better late than never. So happy 25th anniversary to Final Fantasy VII. I can't tell you how much this game mean a lot to me, since this is what got me started on Final Fantasy in general, and not just Final Fantasy general. On this game plays a huge role. Even though when I went back and revisited after I graduated high school, got me a PlayStation 1 and a PlayStation Black label copy of Final Fantasy VII. But I remember back when I was a little kid, played this at my other cousin in Texas. We got stuck on Midgar, and then the rest is history. Dirge of Service came out in, like in 2006, and I was like, I didn't know what the game was because it's been a long time since I visited Final Fantasy VII, so I wouldn't play Dirge of Service. Made me want to go back and play the original, and then vice versa. As you can see, besides that. But happy 25th anniversary to Final Fantasy VII. And I see the things so far from my seeing most of the updates have something to do with the mobile game First Soldier. So we're gonna have more costumes and more stuff. Whoop-de-doo! I mean, it's a battle royale. Of course, it's gonna happen. I mean, First Soldier's on some Fortnite stuff, so that's gonna happen. They did say that this year they're working on. I think they already did the mocap actors, filming the mocap actors and whatnot for the Final Fantasy VII remake. So I think now we're getting to a point where they're gonna, there's probably gonna be a trailer sometime this year. They talk about sometime this year. I don't know. Don't quote me. They said in the interview thing that I read. So I'm hyped for Final Fantasy VII remake trailer part 2, but okay, let's see the trailer first before we go around saying it is. I want to see proof. I want to see a trailer. Let's get a trailer before we get super hyped, because that's what happens most of the time. Which that's good. That's good. We need a part 2 at this point. We already got the Yuffie DLC. We're already up to speed of what happens in the remake timeline, and everything else. We're already good on that. We have and I've brushed up on my Final Fantasy VII as well, because I've been playing Crisis Core, break at work because the handheld. I finished Dirge of Cerberus remake again. I went to a friend's house. He has a PS5. We played we played episode Yuffie at his place because he's the PS5 and the integrated edition. So we got through that. I played Dirge of Cerberus and finished it up. I played Final Fantasy VII original on the not original but PC version on the Switch, because I rebought it for the Switch because I love Final Fantasy VII so much. So I bought that on the Switch probably when I first got the Switch, so I finally finished that too. I'm reading both the books. I would like to go grab the books right there, but I finished the Turk's novel, The Children Are Alright, the Turk side story, and now I'm finishing the One Way to Smile. With all the episodes, the characters before it becomes Advent Children. Watch Advent Children complete I think it's the 4-hour movie, the complete Advent Children. I went back on YouTube and watched the fan dub of The Last Order. I've done a lot for Final Fantasy VII as it is, so obviously, evidently, this game means a lot to me. I mean, do I have to prove my metal with my Buster Sword, spray painting my Shinra logo sports jacket that I'm donning? Even got the little green under it, because Midgar is all green and stuff. In fact, the theme of Final Fantasy VII is actually green, which is actually funny because just like Final Fantasy X, The huge theme has something to do with water. Not in a big way that Final Fantasy X does, but, purification because, Aerith is a celestial maiden who, dies, gets this all-powerful holy materia to block out Sephiroth's meteor that hits the Earth. And it's not really much of a spoil because this is the original Final Fantasy VII I'm talking about right now. We don't know what's going to happen in the remake. Aerith could not die in the remake. I don't know. I'm not Square Enix dev. You don't talk to me about that stuff. But, it does have a lot to do with water. As well as different spiritualities as well. Also, Norse mythology and Greek mythology follow in the Final Fantasy VII storyline as well, if you could tell by the summons and locations and everything. So, I'm a whiz. Look, I know Final Fantasy, but 7 is the one I know the most. Which anybody who knows anything about the Final Fantasy fan base, it's usually the first game you play that becomes your favorite. Sometimes it could be because everyone get their opinion from the internet or whatnot, but I don't think that's the case right there. From me, it's legitimately my first Final Fantasy, and I fell in love with it. I've already been playing like Zelda, Ocarina of Time, and seeing this blonde guy with the big sword, kind of turn young Devin on really badly. I had a thing with swords when I was a kid. Don't judge me. God, I need therapy. But no, and so far, I think they also teased out stuff for Ever Crisis I'm hoping with Ever Crisis that we're not have to pay for the episodes. It's like Final Fantasy 15's Pocket Edition, where you play every Final Fantasy VII saga. So I'm hoping that that's not the case. I'm hoping that you don't have to pay for the episodes like the Pocket Edition when it first came out. I want a complete version of Ever Crisis. This one you're supposed to play chapters from Crisis Core, Final Fantasy VII Original, Final Fantasy VII Remake with the Final Fantasy VII turn-based combat, and Dirge of Cerberus. And maybe you might be playing the Avid Children chapters, who knows. But it didn't say it. But it was also before Crisis stuff too, which I think that's going to be very important because that's the only part of the lore of the remake that we do not have. Like, it's in the remake, but we have no backstories to Barrett and why Barrett doesn't want to be labeled as a Wutai and Avalanche member, because the Wutai Avalanche that was led by Fujito and before Crisis were so extreme that they murdered people on the streets to prove their political points against Shinra. And then the dude was so crazy, he summons Zirconian weapon, fused with it, and tried to destroy the entire planet to repair the life stream, which, I only know that because I know about the lore of Final Fantasy VII. But we haven't got Before Crisis at all, and it's because it was a Japanese imported mobile game in Japan only that had some of the backstories of all the characters we know. I wish they could have included in Crisis Core, but if they're not going to give us a mobile game, they should have put some segments. I mean, they did have a scene where Zack stands in front of the graves of his two best friends before he met Cloud. That got killed by this version of Avalanche. But how Barrett was talking about, don't compare them to Wutai, I think it was a reference to Fujito's Avalanche cell. And Fujito was crazy. Fujito is Avalanche version of Hojo, pretty much, if you need to know. In fact, Fujito looked up to Hojo. But yeah, it's something that we could need. So I'm glad for Ever Crisis for at least putting out, more lore that we need. Because I always wondered, it's like, what is Barrett talking about when you want to be compared to Wutai? I thought it was just wrong information. There's more than that. There has to be. Barrett may be aggressive and loudmouth at times. I like the character, but I don't think he wouldn't do anything that didn't make no sense. So I think the character of Barrett, didn't like that version of Avalanche because he knows. He knows what the past Avalanche has done. And everything they've done. Also, the Turks also having a conscience a little earlier, too. I mean, they had a conscience in the original. But you see in the remake what the Turks actually actively talking about, like, I regret this, but what am I going to do? Well, I feel bad about this. In fact, I don't think you see the Turks most of the game after you beat. I think after you beat Rufus, I don't think you see the Turks again. I could be wrong, so it looks like they're taking their R&R. When I think, well, you do see Sang with Rufus, but I think you don't see the rest of them. They're actually going on vacation or something like that, which will lead us to the in remake part 2. And this is if it follows the original. If it follows the original. If it doesn't, feel free to put a dislike and make fun of me and troll me all you want. If that's not the case, I'll take it like a man. But looks like this is going to lead to Coastal Del Rey. After, of course, after Calm, of course. So, maybe we'll see the Turks again in Coastal Del Rey. So, you know, maybe. But I think it's going to happen after the Calm flashbacks. And for the remake part 2, I'm really hoping to have a playable Sephiroth. Not just look at his stats like you did in the original. A playable Sephiroth in the flashbacks of Nibelheim. Even though, yes, you'll have Cloud on your team, but, you know, where you can switch team members, I actually want to see what Sephiroth's combat would look like. I think most of us do. But that's the only time I want to see Sephiroth. I do not want to see Sephiroth in part 2 as the final boss. We already fought him. We won, technically, but, you know, Sephiroth is still alive. But I want to save Sephiroth for the final battle because, well, he's the main antagonist of Final Fantasy VII. I'm not, you know... I think, if anything, they need to put, like, something like Genesis, at least, for, as the final antagonist for part 2. Because, I mean, they could put the Deep Ground characters. I think the Deep Ground characters would fit very well. I mean, but I think they're mostly episode Yuffie, and then you got the extra secret boss, like a Kingdom Hearts Sephiroth boss, but for Final Fantasy VII Remake, it's Weiss from Dirge of Cerberus. But I hope they actually bring those characters back. Maybe we'll see Rosso, Azul, maybe not Shulk because the timeline's messed up. If this is early Deep Ground, we're not going to see Shulk. So, you know, I'm not too worried about that stuff. Also, I would like to see more with Zack because Zack's alive in this thing. My theory about Zack is that the Whispers bought Zack minutes before he died and put him in the same timeline as the current Cloud in there. Just in case Sephiroth would mess up time, they'd have a backup plan to stop Sephiroth by sending Zack to the past. No, sorry. Zack to the future to stop Sephiroth if the Whispers would die, because Sephiroth tricked Cloud in him to kill the Whispers, and now time is messed up. Which also would which actually probably go back and make it so Yuffie meets Deep Ground way earlier before Dirge of Cerberus. Back when they were still part of Shinra, because they were part of Shinra and Scarlet did command them. But also, I like we got the Ever Crisis because we get more lore. And we really desperately need the Before Crisis lore. Because things that references the remake, even to us old Final Fantasy VII fans, or the new generation that just got play the remake and liked it, even for both of them, it's still confusing to what's going on in the lore because there's no piece of media, at least in America, that had all these extra stories at all. So it's kind of weird that we have Barrett talking, bad-mouthing the Avalanche Cell of Wutai. We don't know that unless we had to play Before Crisis. That's because I know the lore and stuff, but people ain't gonna try and go find the lore. People want to play, well, actual, so maybe books, stuff like that. And may the crystal be with you.